Common theme. So first of all, the way you framed it, I think, is a great way to frame it. Where I think product launch kind of has this connotation of being like the final, the end game. Like this is it. We've made it. And I think that a good way to frame some of these key ideas and takeaways would be to talk about some misconceptions that companies, that people, that entrepreneurs have. So maybe let's talk about 3 or 4 misconceptions that I've seen come up again and again. The first I would say is that product launches successful product launches start way before most people realize. And what I mean by that in a nutshell is that a successful product launch is not just an ad in the newspaper or a YouTube video or some sort of launch event. There's a lot of planning that has to go into it. I think that at the end of the day, a product launch is really just a tool. It's a tool to get a company or a product where it needs to go.
When should I launch my product? I mean, is there a time when I should launch it?
That's a great question. And I think the way I like to frame this question is by asking another question, which is really, what is it that you're looking to achieve? So again, if you're taking the assumption that I just said before, which is that the launch is really just a means to an end. It's a tool that you and your company have in order to achieve something. So the first most important thing is to gain alignment within your team, certainly, and make sure that you yourself, if you're the product owner or the owner of the launch, you have to make sure that you have clarity on what is it that we're trying to achieve with this launch. But the point is the same no matter what your situation is that you really have to define what is it that we're looking to achieve with this launch, and then kind of reverse engineer from there. Because once you have your goal defined and your kind of objective defined, you can look back and say, well, okay, what goes into this? What check boxes do I need to make sure are checked off in order to allow me to achieve this objective?
How do I plan a launch? I mean, what goes into the planning? And how do I?
So it's a great question. I mean, I do want to just make a point on that last sentence that you said, is that it's easy to say kind of academically, and it's easy to talk about planning and checklists and all these things. At the end of the day, it often is not as clear cut as we'd like it to be. And there's a whole bunch of moving parts and a lot of opinions in the room, and you might have investors and a board and stuff like that. And I think what's important is that, I think as a marketing guy, like as the head of marketing currently in my startup, I've come to realize that you don't really know what you're doing. You're living a life of kind of failed experiments and successful experiments, but everything you're doing is kind of an educated assumption and a guess. And you just have to be able to learn from what works and continue to do that, learn from what doesn't work and continue to take that away.
We're going to go through Zevi's top 3 tips when it comes to product launching a product. Tip number 1 being define your launch goals.
Right. So we mentioned this quickly, and I cannot, again, overstate the importance of this, is that you want to make sure that you understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. That could be in just a broad goal. Obviously, if you can define KPIs or certain specific metrics or measurables, that would be ideal. And then you want to reverse, well, we'll get to that in the second tip, but then, that's the basis of everything else that you're going to do. Make sure you understand your goals.
Tip number 2, create a launch checklist.
Right. So once we define our goals, so you want to reverse engineer that and say, well, okay, what are the things that I need in order to allow me to achieve those goals? And those could be marketing, those could be technical, those could be product-oriented goals, those could be collaboration goals if I have to reach out to an influencer. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong number of check boxes to put there, but you have to make sure that you're comfortable with your ability to put your best foot forward and then to kind of support the influx of attention that you're about to get, whether it's customer support or otherwise.
Tip number 3, don't get too up or down after launch.
You should celebrate it. You should let people feel accomplished, let people feel like they have crossed a threshold and a milestone. That is important for kind of motivation internally and just good practice in keeping a positive spin on the efforts that people are making. There's a human side to these things. It's not all numbers. It's not all product launches. So don't get too up or down when it comes to the product or the numbers or the long-term vision of your product, but do get way up and celebrate the fact that your team has achieved a tremendous goal, and don't be afraid to do that.